What's going on, everyone? My name is Twig, and today we are talking about the newly released Meifumado. We have a lot to go over with this one, so feel free to use the timestamps to skip around to what points of the video interest you. Meifumado is a linear, difficult martial arts swordplay type of game that has a mostly negative review rating on Steam as of right now, and I gave it a positive one. Why, you may ask? Well, we'll be talking more about that, but to get my intro stuff out of the way, I post reviews on games that I 100% here on YouTube in video format, as well as written reviews on Steam. Add me on there if you're into PC gaming. I accept pretty much everyone. I also created a Steam curator group as well, and it'll be linked down below with all that other stuff. I've honestly really enjoyed my time with Meifumado, so much that I've posted 2 other videos and made a Steam guide on how to 100% this game. I think it's important to kind of know my perspective on it because it differs from a lot of people who have known about this title for a long time. Let me be sure to say this is a linear, 4 area, 4 bosses type of game. It has a speedrun achievement to complete the game in 50 minutes with no deaths, and my walkthrough took under 30 minutes and I wasn't in a hurry at all. The game will probably take you roughly 2 to 3 hours, depending on how fast you pick up the controls and learn the enemy movements, so it's entirely skill based, but it isn't a long game by any means. Originally, it was meant to be an action RPG set in an immersive open world with an in-depth combat system that puts a heavy focus on RPG elements. On their Kickstarter page, they plan to allow the player to change the course of the story and its ending depending on the choices that you make throughout the game. There is a long backstory to this game that put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because they weren't aware of what was going on behind the scenes. Meifumado, developed and published by Old Bit Studio, put up a Kickstarter, promoted on there and on Instagram and on Twitter. The earliest posts that I could find are from July 23rd, 2021, which is about 3 years ago, and it featured a screenshot with the description saying that the game has been in development for years. The area in the screenshot didn't make it to the game that we know today, which sucks because it looked really good. On the Twitter post, it was said that they are looking for help with funds, looking for a publisher to take interest, or the possibility of doing a crowdfunding campaign. Eventually, a Kickstarter campaign was launched with stretch goals like boss rush mode, graphic filters, hardcore mode, minigames, and voice acting. They apparently met all of the goals except for voice acting, raising a total of around $48,000 with almost 1,400 backers. An update was put out on March 31st, 2022, congratulating everyone on a successful campaign, but after that, a lot of time passed and backers rightfully got worried, with no info coming out. About 2 years later, in May 2024, a new update post arrives that is backer restricted, so I couldn't read it. But based on other discussion threads on Steam provided by what other people have said, and some of what the dev said, is that they never received their Kickstarter money, which obviously took a toll on development. Apparently, Old Bit is a studio based out of Belarus. There were sanctions caused by the war, so they ran the campaign through a US company or something like that. Eventually, their partners couldn't send the money because of the sanctions on the banking sector. The dev said that's the long story short, and that it's more complex than that. During those 2 years of radio silence, another game was promoted on Indiegogo that used the game's same promotional material, which caused quite a controversy. The dev has said that they filed a DMC and had that false game removed, but after all that time, fans really thought the game was either a scam or never coming out. The content looked great during their Kickstarter run, heavily promoted to pump up hype, and then they were gone in an instant. But new life emerged out of nowhere with another update, was promoted on the platforms on May 21st, 2024, 2 months ago, claiming that the release is coming this summer, and it did, just not with the same vision it had before. For me, I found this game on the upcoming games list on Steam about a day or two before release. I thought the game looked great, right up my alley, samurai, difficult, retro-style graphics. I didn't have any clue that this game has been in the works for apparently a really long time, but that's to be expected for a small dev team with low funds and high expectations that they set for themselves. Met with mostly negative reviews on Steam, the game does have some bugs. The controls are very hard to learn with no controller remapping, and of course the lack of content that was originally promoted. I did want to mention some of the bugs that are currently in the game. Minor bugs don't really bother me, but major ones do. Some of the minor ones are, of course, the map issue where if you move the map, it duplicates a million times and makes it hard to read. The game crashed or froze on me, I think, about 2 times throughout my 13 hours in the game. Some people are reporting more. There were instances of enemies getting frozen in place, and I can't really remember if I recorded any instances of that, but a similar thing happened with the third boss where she did like her upward attack and got stuck up in the air, eventually coming down when she did that attack the next time. The biggest bug of all, though, is one that I ran into after attempting my no-death runs. This is a major bug that I couldn't really figure out what was triggering this, but after you defeat the boss, sometimes you can't leave the arena, which prevents you from going forward or backwards on the map. If you're on a normal playthrough, you can just reload the previous save and defeat them again, but in this case, being on a no-death run, loading at all voids the achievement. As to what triggers this bug, it only happened on the second and third bosses, and coincidentally, those are the 2 that I used a lot of throwables on, so I don't know. It could be me not resting at the bonfire before the boss. It could be killing the boss too close to the door. I couldn't really figure it out, but it drove me insane because each time I had to restart the run and do another. The difficulty of the game seems really hard at first. There is no setting to turn up or down. It's just the way that it comes. Parrying to do a death blow is basically the key to putting this game on easy mode. When you first boot it up, the controls will seem very overwhelming with no controller remapping as of right now. You just have to buckle down and program your brain through repetition, honestly. I beat the game probably all the way through about 15 times at least, including my playthroughs on the Steam Deck, learning enemy attacks, handling multiple enemies at once, and grinding the bosses over and over will net you with an agonizing but rewarding experience. I believe this game is heavily inspired by the works of Kazu Kyoki. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is a manga artist who wrote Lone Wolf and Cub. The word Meifumado was invented specifically for the manga and means something along the lines of Road to Hell. Seems like a good fit for this game. You start off being awoken by a mysterious old man saying it's finally time to pay Shogun back what you owe. You learn that you're finally free from the shackles that once bound you, and it's your duty to make your way to the Shogun. I love a vague backstory with just a few hints to get you thinking. The story is by no means revolutionary throughout the game, with little to nothing being said until the middle and then at the end of the game. I won't show any of the few lines of dialogue after this first initial encounter, but apparently you are an assassin that was created by the corrupted people in power. The setting is post-apocalyptic, inspired by themes from Japan. The setting and tone coincide really well with the art direction and ambient sound design in this game. Movement feels smooth and combat is amazing. Gameplay is pretty simple. In the top left you have your health bar, stamina bar, and chi meter. Chi is used whenever you do a special attack, and it doesn't refill until you consume something that adds chi. The same way with your health. There are no flasks. Save points don't refill your health. You have to eat in order to top off your health bar or your chi meter. In terms of combat, you have your sword that you can use against enemies up close, a bow for long range, and 3 different throwables to spice things up. Kunai, shuriken, and bombs are extremely useful as you play through the game, and I've found that I use them way more than I would in other titles, which was super refreshing. You do pick up armor in the second area, but it only applies hidden damage reduction or chi capacity. There isn't a physical change in the look of your character. The sword is, of course, what you will use the most. You have your basic attack and you have your chi attacks. Then you have the option to deflect or parry enemies with an instant death blow. Bosses and the large enemies have a meter that you have to fill with multiple parries to trigger the death blow. Like I said before, this game is almost fully linear. There is a portion of the second area in the caves where you can get lost, having to backtrack to find items and explore, but for the most part, you're only moving forward. The map is a nice feature to have. It gets the job done, and even if it is pretty basic, movement feels absolutely amazing in this game, from sprinting to jumping to rolling and dodging. I found myself stringing all of them together to close gaps between enemies and combo them in samurai-like fashion. Climbing felt good. You can jump off walls and grab onto ledges to get chests. There is a quick bar that you can assign throwables to in order to use them, and you can even put food up there to heal yourself semi-quickly, even though I prefer just to open up my inventory and snack on a few different items depending on how much health I needed. The part of the game where I had the most fun and also was the most challenging were the bosses. There are 4 total bosses, each with their own area that you have to fight through to get to them. Bonfires, or resting places, or whatever you want to call them, are placed usually at the beginning of the stage and then at the end right before the boss. The first 2 stages have like one in the middle since you're warming up to the game essentially, but the last 2 stages have a ledge that you drop off, preventing you from retreating back to the save point after killing an enemy. Because you can kill enemies and then go back to the save point so that if you die, you don't have to kill them again, which I completely utilized on my first playthrough. But the bosses, at least the second and third and last bosses, were really challenging. There are keys to beating each of them, but I won't spoil any of that here. If you want more info, you can check out my other Meifumado videos or my Steam guide where I talk about how to 100% the game. Each boss is very unique, and it was a pleasure to learn their attacks and weaknesses. The hardest fight to learn was the third boss, and the hardest fight for me personally was the final boss. I always try to include an achievement breakdown section in my reviews because that's just something I am personally interested in, so there are 22 achievements in total in this one, and I would be lying if I said this game was easy. 12 achievements are ones that you would naturally unlock, such as getting X amount of kills with your sword, or throwables, or death blows, so you really don't have to worry about getting all of them. Just use all your weapons and you'll eventually unlock them. There are 4 achievements associated with killing each boss for the first time, and then there are 4 more achievements associated with each boss for beating them without getting hit. This was probably the most frustrating but also the most rewarding part of the game for me. Learning each boss to perfection took a lot of time, and it was a lot of fun if you're into that sort of thing. The last 2 achievements are associated with completing the game without dying. One is unlocked when you beat the game with no deaths, and the other is beating the game deathless in under 50 minutes. I didn't have any trouble meeting the time restraint, honestly. I almost feel like it should have been 30 minutes or so. The deathless part is going to be the challenging part, since loading any save voids the achievements. I found myself constantly topping off my health, learning each screen to remember how many enemies were there, and of course practicing the bosses over and over. Even after no hitting them, I failed many runs on the 3rd and 4th boss, which was devastating at the time. But to top it all off, after feeling confident in my runs, I ran into a game-breaking bug that wouldn't let me advance in the game. I don't know if anyone else ran into this, but it happened for me after the Pyro boss and the Onamusha boss. I couldn't figure out what was triggering the bug, but like I said, it wouldn't let me leave the arena, which in turn made me have to start over. It was a toss-up whether it would occur, and made for some stressful moments, as you can see in my Deathless walkthrough video. It's got to be updated and fixed because it almost drove me mad that something out of my control was keeping me from the final achievements. That was really the only negative with the game for me. Sure, the map duplication bug, the controls, the lack of button customization, the crashes are all things that can easily be fixed and hopefully will be taken care of soon. For me, the gameplay halting bug is top priority. I could nitpick and say that I would love for the game to be longer, a save indication would be nice, enemy tracking needs to be tuned, but the way that the game currently sits is fine. I enjoy short games sometimes, and of course I would love to see all of those additions that were originally in the vision for the game be included in the current build. How cool would it be to have multiple armor sets? But then, on the other hand, you have to render everything frame by frame, which takes time and money. It would be sick to have the Yeti monster boss or the Quelaag cave boss in the current game. Hopefully, if the game gets some love, we can see these bosses and new areas in the future. NPCs with quests, forging, crafting, multiple swords to use, a boss rush mode are all things that could be added in time. This game needs exposure and support to get to the other gaming platforms that they originally wanted to be on at release time. I love learning the controls, I love the boss battles, the unique areas and enemy variety. The desaturated colors and backgrounds build the dystopian world beautifully. Art direction and sound design is killer, animations are top notch, and the feel of the game has my inside screaming for more. The achievements really pushed me to replay this game over and over until I was able to get them all, and that's a good feeling to have. I did 1 or 2 playthroughs on my Steam Deck while laying in bed, and everything felt amazing. This is a great game to chill and play because areas between save points are done quick, and you can beat the overall game pretty quick too if you're just playing on and off. I didn't really run into any issues even though the game doesn't have a verified Steam rating. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much in this video. There was a lot of information to cover and I just wanted to make sure I got it all. I really enjoyed my time with this game. It's full price for around 15 bucks, or it'll be on sale for a couple more days at 10% off. If you made it this far in the video, I applaud you for listening to me talk this much. There are quite a few games I still want to play that either have been on my radar or just recently popped up. Recommend me some games down below or shoot me a message on Steam. I'm on every day pretty much. And I guess that's all, so I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.